Hello, class. This is the first of two lectures, mini lectures really, on Shakespeare's Othello. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the structure of the play and how to determine themes from that structure. So, the first lecture here is going to be about the five act play structure, and the second lecture is going to be about how to apply that structure to themes within the play. It's important for us to start with looking at the structural analysis of the play, and it's something that has pretty classical roots. Aristotle, in his work Poetics, talked about place or story structure mainly, and so did Horace in his work. Um, and it's important for us to know that as a modern audience, we are more accustomed to the three act structure. Very roughly, those acts are Act One is the beginning, Act Two is the middle, and Act Three is the end. I know that seems very simplistic, but it's important for us to think about how the stories play out. In the beginning, there is the setup, right? You got to establish the scene, set up the conflict that's going to happen. Two, the middle is the actual confrontation that happens. And then three, at the end, is the resolution that results from that confrontation. In the three act structure, generally speaking, the climax happens between the second act and the third act, because then the resolution is the act three is the resolution resulting from that climax. It's a little different. And Shakespeare, you can very in Shakespeare's work, you can very clearly see the five act structure. He delineates them. A lot of times in the modern three act structure, there's no delineation between the acts, but Shakespeare has very clear sections in his work. The first act is the exposition, and this is just building the information that the reader needs to know. A lot of the times it can come from interactions, or it can come very blatantly telling the reader what they need to know, or the audience what they need to know. Act two is the rising action. So in the exposition, also the roots of the conflict are going to be hinted at. The rising action, you begin to build that conflict. Three, in Act three, is the climax. That is the explosive action, or the action that results from that conflict. Four is the falling action and seeing how that plays out. And then finally, in Act five, there's the denouement, the result, right? The resolution of that action. To further elaborate on that, you can see these two clear structures, um, where you can see in the 3x structure, the climax is kind of pushed towards a little bit towards the back end of the work. You see the setup, the act two confrontation, and then the resolution. And then you can see the 5 act structure is a little bit more balanced, and the climax happening in Act 3 in the middle. A lot of this, it's important to know, a lot of this was built on the work of many literary analysis or analysts. I talked about how Aristotle in his work, um, Poetics, he began building this, and a lot of that structure is resulting from Gustav Freytag, who was a 19th century German playwright and author. So he also developed that structure and fine tuned it. All right, I'm going to move on in the next one to how we can apply this to Othello.